Welcome everybody. So it's really nice to see that you showed up in such large numbers. So it's really exciting. I think 1.5 months ago we squashed together, Flo's and I. So during some squash, well not during, but during the drinks after, we kind of talked about customer validation and discovery. We discovered basically that we have a joint interest, and that's how this all started. And we were saying, okay, hey, we need to do a meetup about the subject. So, and that's where we are right now. So, really nice to see. I think we need to thank a company, Global Orange. So that's where you are right now. Impressive venue, as I may say so. So personally, I work I worked as a project manager for Global Orange. Currently busy with Simpled, which is one of the ventures. So what does Global Orange? I think to put it very simple, we build software, but what we say and what we also do, we build products, meaning that we're not only like the standard custom-made software supplier. We really have a lot of knowledge in-house about things like UX, also building now experience with customer validation and discovery. So we're not only the technical guys, but we are also able to think along with our customers and come up with extra business advice on how to build, for instance, a successful SaaS product. So, yeah. Oh. There's an animation in there. Always nice to see that. So the focus of the meetups. Education and constant awareness. Well, that's some brilliant terms, but I think what we mean with this is that we really want to take part in the whole movement of customer validation. There's a lot of things that have been said. Also, the principles behind it are very old, of course, talking with your customers. But we really discovered that there's still a lot to learn. And I think also a thing is that a lot of companies say that they are doing this, you know, customer validation. Yeah, we talk to our customers, but yeah, if you look in essence, they're doing it wrong, or they don't do it at all. So that's why the awareness is there. We both have had our experience with startups or ventures that failed. And basically, if you look back together, we kind of think it's basically this reason, that we were doing things not in the right way. So that's why we want to do something about it. So actually, it's not, this is the first meetup of a set of 6. So we thought, yeah, well, you can do it one time, but let's make a whole program out of it. So that's what you see here. So we're now here. This is today, the introduction. And the next one is already planned, the 23rd of February. So now I have to go back. Is that possible still? So, yeah, you see some subjects here. We already are contacting speakers, but if you know somebody who could, take part in one of the meetups, the next meetups, please contact us. So tomorrow we will announce the new date. So, yeah, the subjects are here. I think they're also in the meetup. So, yeah. Not yet. Place them online. So for tonight, well, we are a little bit late, but anyway, we're going to start off the meetup with Floris. He will introduce himself later on. I think you can do best. He's going to actually do a turbo session, which is an intense 40-minute session with a lot of things, the basics of customer validation and discovery. Then we have a short break and some drinks, of course. Hopefully you already found the pizza and the beers. And after that we will do a group discussion. So, by the way, we already received some questions. But if you have more questions, please write them down, or we will announce when we start. And please put your finger in the air so we can start. Yeah, and we think we will end around 20:45 and start with some small talk. So that's it. I will now give the word to Floris.
Thanks, Steven. Okay, can I have the mouse, please? Okay, so it's not really the intention that we or I are going to do all the talks. So we're going to open this year's meetups. The other meetups are actually done by other specialists in the subject of customer validation. We actually have 4 or 5 already confirmed. Only for the second one, we're still working on a very good speaker. Some of you might have read the MOM test, and it's actually one of the writers of the MOM test. So that's like a very influential book in customer discovery and validation, but I'll get back to that later. So I know there are a lot of people here who build, design, sell new products, right? So my question to start is actually, how do you begin? Like, what do you do when you start building a new product? Can someone maybe user research? How do you do it? Qualitative or quantitative? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Is it hard for you to ask the right questions? Do you think it's hard? Do you think you get the right response and the right information or data to continue your work? Okay. I'm going to go to the right. So maybe someone here who is building new things, new products. It could be sales also or marketing. Like, how do you start?
Focus groups.
Focus groups. Assumptions? Do you investigate them, or do you like write them down and then? Okay, because I think that's like where usually most people start, with assumptions, with ideas, like how cool would it be if we would buy this. And I think the biggest problem here is that what usually happens is that you build a product and not a solution. So you fall in love with a certain solution and you build it, but actually you're building a product that in your mind is a great solution, but it's actually just a product. And the thing is, people don't really care about products. They care about solutions, and that's, I think, a very big problem. So we're going to talk more about that in this talk. Introduction to customer discovery and development. That's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Floris Hop, and you might ask, like, why am I the person standing here? Like, why am I doing this talk? Steven already said a little bit about that. I'm going to continue. So I started my studies with psychology also, because I was interested in what motivates people to do certain things. And after my studies, I decided to start a company. That was like a big dream of mine, and I was always talking about ideas, etc., etc. And now we found a big problem. People that do their taxes. People hate doing their taxes. Only going to the dentist is actually worse than doing your taxes. So we started Belastingbutler. I don't know if someone here knows, probably not. Steven does, sure. Willemijn. We started with the big problem. We actually got more than 100,000 euros of investment, and we built a product. Things were going great. It was pretty awesome. We launched, we had a lot of good attention in the media. I mean, we were featured in about every newspaper in Holland, radio interviews, etc., etc. And then after year one, things didn't really, the millions didn't come rolling in, it was not like, okay, no, it was just a lot of hard work. And I mean, we did get customers, but it was not like, it was really like setting off. And as of today, I think like even like this week, we're looking for a buyer who's gonna buy the company for like a penny on the dime. So, in the end, we spent a lot of time building a product, spending so much energy, time, money into what we thought was a solution, but was actually a product. And it was a solution for some people, but not for, every Dutch individual. So I figured, okay, so I'm missing a piece of the puzzle, this one. And I thought, like, okay, so why, like, what did we not get? Like we had, the product was amazing, the platform we have works really well, no problems whatsoever. Objectively seen is great. I mean, we have like a guarantee that you will not, how do you call it? You have like a guarantee of maximum tax refund, things like that. So you would say, like that's great. Well, apparently it's not enough. So for the past 1.5 years, I've immersed myself in like the art of understanding what people want. And that is, I think, customer discovery and validation. So as of today, right now, I'm mentoring startups at ING, and I'm working on a new company based on validating market pains and building successful businesses out of it. So it's like a validation machine. Let's see if we can get that to work. That would be great. So mouse, I think, is sometimes okay. Yeah, customer discovery and validation is like how you call it. I usually just call it CusDev. So when I'm talking about CusDev, it's not about my cousin. It's about customer discovery and validation. So, okay. So we have a lot of people in the Meetup group. We have more than 200. I think like 220. I just counted today. That's amazing. And we did a survey some time ago, and apparently we have a lot of different people. We have product owners, service designers, sheep with 5 legs. We have operations managers, international account managers, senior product managers. So when I started like building the deck, I was thinking, okay, so what to tell? And I think there is one thing that unites us all probably, and that's that we're interested in building or designing, building, and selling new products and services. I don't know if you agree. Maybe I see a lot of. Okay, so I didn't expect someone to say no. So I think we're all interested in this, and so what to expect today? I think all new things have their base in history. So we're going to start with a little bit of background. We're going to start with why we need customer development, CusDev, about what it is, how you do it, and we're going to end with the group discussion. So, yeah, that's... Okay, so why do we need CusDev? So I thought about this a lot, and I thought about, okay, so what are the reasons why suddenly, like customer discovery and validation is such a big thing, It's really, okay, a lot of people in America are talking about it, in Holland not so much, but they will come. And so what is happening in the world? And I really think it's due to, the big technological breakthroughs, of course. I mean, we have the internet, and that like kind of changed everything. So the world is changing, and I have thought of like 5 or 6, I think, things that are really changing the world right now and have a big influence on why customer development is very important now and was not so important in the past. So it's about that we have more supply and diversification. I will get more into different subjects. Okay, distribution, transparency, connectedness, more power and influence, and time. This is actually about people, about customers, about consumers, people living as of this moment. So more supply and diversification. In the past, we would, if you wanted to communicate with someone, let's say, I don't know, 50 years ago, you could write them a letter, or you could maybe call them. That's about it. Right now, we have, WhatsApp, and not just WhatsApp. We have about 1,000 other services where you can call, text, communicate with people, and that's what we see in the world. There's a big supply and diversification of products and services. So where you see that we are moving from a mainstream market to niche market, where a lot of small niches are being served by different companies. Distribution. Think about Google, the world at your fingertip. You can find about 1 million games, I think, in the App Store. It's you're not just confined to your own little town or whatever. You can literally find everything in the world. Bol.com. Instead of a bookstore where you would go 20 years ago, you go to Bol.com, and you can actually, Bol.com is like the Amazon for people who don't know it, the Dutch Amazon. You can find literally almost every book that's out there. So the distribution part is changing, has changed a lot. Transparency, we have independent. That's not so independent anymore, I think, since Achmea bought it. But well, the name is nice, it kind of fits the transparency thing. So, but I think you get the point. So it's we have the WikiLeaks, Tweakers.net. It's the price watch. I mean, you can just look at where you can find the cheapest hardware stuff, phones, whatever, you can find it there, and it's a very reliable source. So, big companies can't screw the people anymore like they used to do. They couldn't have a big megaphone and saying, okay, we're awesome, buy our stuff. It's shitty, but you don't know because you have no idea, and there's no internet. So that's really changing. Connectedness. Think about Alibaba. You probably know Alibaba. I think it's one of the most. They have the biggest revenue, I think, in the world. But that's not the point here. It's especially that you have approximately every Chinese factory right within 2 or 3 clicks. You can order things in a Chinese factory. That's not something you could have done 20 years ago. That would have been very, very different. So. Facebook, of course, same with power and influence. People have more power and influence. People don't just speak out loudly or more loud than they used to do. They also know better what they want. So people are very talkative. I don't know if people here have tweeted maybe about this event, but I mean, so the customer has a lot more power and influence. So that also means that people have to listen, or sorry, the companies have to listen more carefully to what people have to say, because they cannot just do what they want anymore. And of course, we have so much time. In the past, we used to, work in order to survive, and now suddenly we work in order to, go out for dinner and go see a movie, go on holidays. So that's also, I think, changing our world. So there's a big change in both demand and supply. So the customer behavior and demand is changing, and because it's much cheaper and easier to build things, to create things, the world is literally changing so much every day. I sometimes look back a year and I'm like, wow, so much has happened, so many new things, and that creates a lot of opportunities, I think, for us creators, if you would call it that. I know I like to create, and I don't really like to optimize. I like to create. So I think this is really the era of people who create, and we should use this in our advantage. But as you could see with the Belastingbutler example, it's not just about creating something. It's about creating something that people really value, that people really need. That's actually better than the current solution that people have. So, the big influence. Everything. People want more, better, tailor-made, faster. Yeah, people even know better what they want. And yeah, so the beauty is, yes, we can build everything. 20 years ago, it was not so easy to make all these tailor-made solutions. But right now, I mean, we can build like the craziest things that are like 10 times better than current solutions for a tenth of the price and a tenth of the time needed to develop it. So that is really something different. Question is, oh yeah, and sorry. So that's leading to like a gold fever. These are like people who have the gold fever. You might not see it, but they are working very, very hard. And they are like the first, or maybe not the first entrepreneurs, but they are like, it's like, yeah, okay. So, but the big problem of the gold fever thing, and I think we're really living in this gold fever when it comes to startups and new ideas, and everybody's really frantic about it, but then it's in a way a slippery road. It's dangerous. A lot of people, they don't really die, but I mean, like a lot of people die. Like 90% of the startups, they fail. You probably know this statistic, and the reason why these startups fail is because they couldn't find a market for their product. So you probably know Steve Blank, maybe maybe you don't. He's like one of the founding fathers, I guess, for the term customer discovery and validation. He writes a lot of good stuff about startups. So if you're in the startup business and you don't know him, you should. And the thing is, like, why make stuff nobody wants? I've spent about more than three years, I think, on Blossing Butler, not full time, but I mean, I spent a lot of time on Blossing Butler, and I think if we would have understood the whole basics of talking to people and finding out what their problems are, then we would have, well, the company would have looked very different. So the thing is, we don't really know how to make stuff people want. And I think like the basic solutions now were quantitative. An invention is not a solution. We all know the Segway. I just looked it up today. They burned about $100 million. It was like the big thing a couple of years ago, or at least that was what people said. The Segway would change the way we would transport ourselves. It was like it would be bigger than what is it? Than the internet. I think that was like what people said. Well, we all know how that went. It looks pretty dorky. I wouldn't want to, like, if someone would pay me to go on a Segway, I would literally say thank you, no thank you. But I mean, this is like a good example of where like you can think of a solution, or you can build a product, you can get people to pay you for it. I mean, we got more than 150,000 euros for Blossing Butler. I don't know where that money went, but it's definitely not paying. The investors are not going to get all their money back, so that's not so good. I think like Bitcoin is the same. I mean, it's still there, but at the moment it's not really like solving a problem. It's cool. It's solving a problem for people who want to make money in like shady ways, or buy hitmen from Czechoslovakia, but it's like not really solving a pain. So. Right now, I think the only solution we have, or the solution most people use, is customer research. And like the traditional ways of doing customer research is very quantitative. So, hello? Okay. So it's very quantitative. And I think that's a lot about optimization. It's good when you know who you're if you know exactly who you're building for and what you're like improving. But I think for new things, it's not really working out, because it's only, quantitative research is about the what, actually. It's about how many people have to do their taxes. 8 million individuals in Holland. How many of them have a bookkeeper? 2 million. I mean, that's like interesting information, but doesn't tell you anything about how to build a solution. Like how should the solution look like? Which features do you want? You know, it doesn't tell you anything about that. And so quantitative research is really about, like, are we heading in the right direction? How can we improve our product or service? And I think qualitative research is more about, like, where do we start and how to create new products and services. In my opinion, maybe like in psychology, okay. But I think the only problem is that we are not researchers. So how are we going to do this? I don't have like the patience to really do thorough research and, you know, sit in a lab and things like that. That's why I didn't continue as a psychologist. And but I actually like this quote of Erica Hall. There's a great book of her about doing like applied research. She's a designer. I'll mention it in the end of the talk, and that's actually, research is just another name for critical thinking. Okay, so I like this one. This is like more, we can use this. But if quantitative research is not suitable for finding out what people want, then what is? Okay, this is pretty obvious, I guess. Customer discovery and development, I think. It was a long intro, but I hope, like, okay. Customer discovery and development is, in my opinion, the art of really understanding people's pains, needs, problems, and acting based on these insights. So this is, I think, really what it is about. And the question or the problems I usually see is that a lot of people are a bit, you know, defensive when you're talking about customer discovery or cost dev, because they say like, yeah, you know, but how can we do this, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you have to take your own ego out of the equation. You know, we're not hired to be an expert on people. We are hired because we're experts in building a product or selling a product or whatever. And I think that cost dev is really about like a different mindset, where you have to accept that you don't have all the answers. So for a lot of people, cost dev looks like this. I don't know if you know what this is. This is like a divining rod, I think is the English word. I looked it up. It's a wiggelroede. People have the idea that, you know, I have no idea where this is going to take us. But actually, I think it's more like a compass. You know, cost dev is more about exploration, or as I see it, about finding the truth. I really think it's like finding the truth and taking all this bullshit about like building things and saying, you know, oh, I have this great idea, I have this great solution based on nothing, actually. So again, I think like refinement is more like the quantitative way of doing research. It's really like, okay, so how many people do we have, et cetera, et cetera. It's about thinking of a solution just like the planned way and zoning in, while the best solution might be missed. And customer of cost dev is more about exploration. It's about more like trying different things and seeing, okay, so does this work, does that work? And you know, you refine, and from here you optimize with quantitative data, but you really start with qualitative data. I love to have this quote in the presentation because you probably all know it. It's so corny, but it's so great to have it in here because if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. You probably all know this, right? What I actually found out is that a lot of people don't, like after, you know, a lot of people know this, but they actually don't know the solution. So if you can't ask people, what do? You know, people are like, I know, but like, what do I do? Like, is there someone here who, what do you do? If you can't ask people, that's what we did in the past. We came up with solutions, and then. But if you can't ask people like what they want, how do you know? Show them?
Ask them about the problems.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the thing. Because like the problem here is like, if you ask people like, what do you want? Then people don't know what they want. That's very clear. And of course, especially in this case, faster horses. If you don't know about the existence of cars, how can you know that there is actually something better than a faster horse? So the trick is actually always about like asking about the whys. You want to really find out why people have a certain need, why people have a certain pain or problem. And I mean, in this case, why did people have horses? To go from A to B, like to transport goods and people. And that was the thing, I think you have the same thing, that people don't buy, people don't want to drill, they want a hole in the wall, So it's really about like what people, what you're solving instead of what people like, yeah. So COSDEV is really, a step back. So COSDEV is really about the whys, about understanding people. And I really think that it's much more of a mindset and not just a discipline. It's not something like you do in between, at the start of building a product, and then you get back to your normal way of life. I think the old way of building things was very much like stage gate, like planned development. And I think really it's much more about a mindset. It's about, a lot of people are afraid to be wrong. A lot of people say, but I don't want to be wrong. And I'm like, you can't be wrong, because like when you just build things, then you're probably going to be wrong. But when you're busy with COSDEV, you can't be wrong, because you have assumptions and you validate or invalidate them. It's as easy as that. So you don't know anything, but you have assumptions. And I think that's really difficult for a lot of people to literally say in a meeting, I don't know. I think a lot of people are scared to say, I don't know. But I think the cool thing is you have assumptions, and if you're good at this, then you actually know how to get the answers from people. So it's really not about knowing anything, it's about forming assumptions, and it's not about being right, it's about learning fast. So, let me get a bit of water. So, what I hear a lot is that people say, but hey, COSDEV takes a lot of time, right? I think that is not necessarily true. I mean, you can do a lot of COSDEV in, let's say, a week. And what I always say is, ask yourself the question, what if you don't do COSDEV? And let's say you're building a platform for a client and you're working with a couple of people, programmers, designers, product managers. A lot of people working on a product, and in the end, the product is not taking off. You've built something for your client that is not working. And this is just as true for, I think, for a platform as for a commercial maybe, or for selling stuff. I mean, if you're building something that doesn't work, you're not a bad person, but I mean, like you're not like giving your client the best they can. And I think there was actually a question for the group discussion. We'll get back a little bit on this later, but really think about that. Don't think about the extra time it will take you, because you can do a lot in a short amount of time. But really think about don't finding out what people want and just like building something because you think it's right. Probably, I think most of us, when we build things, we don't even belong to the target group. So how do you know what people want? I mean, you might have been building things for them for a longer while, but still, I think, validate these assumptions. Don't just go there. And yeah, so growth hacking is something that I think most of you have. Who has heard about growth hacking? Okay, good. So that's a lot. And I really think that like these two are going to define our workspace in a way, or our jobs, I think, in the starting now, today, know what I mean? Like starting really like now or in the near future, they're going to have an increasingly high impact on our jobs, because I think it will either be there will either be a lot of cost dev or growth hacking, or the mindset of cost dev and growth hacking in our jobs, depending on which side you are. Are you building new things, or are you improving things? Because customer discovery and development and growth hacking are mutually exclusive. It's either or. You cannot do these things both at the same time. So when the process of customer or cost dev stops, growth hacking starts. And so a couple of like the differences between cost dev and growth hacking is like cost dev is about exploration. Growth hacking is much more about optimizing. You know, with cost dev you really don't know. You usually don't know who you're building for, what exactly the pain or problem is you're solving. You're really finding that out in the process, and or what the solution is. And usually with growth hacking you have, like for example with startups, you have like product market fit. You know what works and you want to scale hard. You really want to scale that, and that's really what growth hacking is about. And I really do think it's not just about analytics or whatever. It's also really a mindset of how can you just really make the most out of something using data. So we have exploration and optimizing. Cost of how do we find out what works versus how can we increase X, Y, Z? How can we get more users? How can we get more revenue? And again, like use data. You know, growth hacking is very quantitative. I don't even have it here. Okay, so growth hacking is very quantitative, and cost is more of a qualitative thing. So cost is more about the why instead of the what, and a focus on the product and solution instead of distribution. So the big question, of course, is how to do cost dev. That's probably what you came here for, and I'm sorry to have bothered you for the past 25 minutes. But I think it's very important to start with, you have certain different starting points. This holds true especially when you're building a company or a startup. But I think when you work for a client or you work in a little bit of a different job, the starting point is the same, and it's usually start with a combination of the pain and the target group. So you're solving a problem for a certain group of people. Don't make the mistake of starting with the solution. This is the mistake that practically everybody makes. Everybody has, you know, there's a challenge and everybody thinks, like, okay, we have a couple of ideas, hence, so ideas are solutions, and you know, what should we do? And then they build that solution. A lot of people, when they do cost dev for the first time, they also start with a solution. And what they do then is try to like reverse engineer the problem to the solution. That's what I see every time. And that's okay if you do that the first time, but don't do it like the second time. But that is really like the biggest lesson I think in cost dev, is like don't start with a solution, because then you're just, what you're actually doing is like validating if there is a problem for your solution, and that's putting very big constraints on your outcome. Well, I will get back to that later. So you want to start with a pain and a target group. So for example, basics. Okay, we want to design a solution for people to lose weight. That's like a good starting point. You have a big group of people. Because you want to solve a big problem, big problems for a big group of people. There's not necessarily, yeah, okay. So how do you start? Of course, like the basics. Just start with some background information. You know, why do people eat a lot? You know, just read a little bit into it, and then. Think more about your target group, because you want to make a solution for a big group of people. That the example was maybe not so good. But when you're doing the interviews, you really want to zoom in, because starting with people that want to lose weight, there's like, I think 40% of the population probably. So, and that's not really going to help you when you're going to do interviews, because you're looking for a very homogeneous set of people. So it's easier to compare the data you get. So you start with the why, the who. And you should be able to answer the who, where question. I'll get back to that later. When you, so we want to design a solution for people to lose weight. Like I said, you want to start, you want to zoom in. And how many people here have heard about the term early evangelist? That's not a lot. Okay, that's 2. Okay, so when it comes to, you probably have heard about early adopters and things like that, right? Okay, yeah. Early adopters are like early evangelists. You know, they are people that, you know, have a problem, realize they have a problem, they have tried to come up with a solution, they have a budget for it, and you really want to focus, in the interviews, you want to focus on these people, because you can focus on everybody who is overweight and wants to, everybody who is overweight, for example, or everybody who wants to lose weight, but then you have people that are motivated, less motivated, and you really want to find out how you can, you know, solve the problem for the people that are most motivated to do this, because they are the easiest to, not really convince, but I mean, they are like the easiest to talk to you about their problems, their needs, and, you know, because they really want you to get to a solution. So, as I see it, like your earliest customers are always here, and here are the people, you know, they say, you know, yeah, I want to lose weight, but they don't want to get out of their couch. So an example is for example Spotify. When I asked my dad about 3 years ago, I think, like, you know, what do you think? Or I was saying him about Spotify, you know, you can you pay a monthly fee, and then you have like a subscription where you can listen to all the music in the world. And he was like, yeah, you know, like, I'm fine buying CDs, you know, why do you need all the music, etc., etc. And that's usually, you know, the thing with this circle that I just showed you. You know, you want to look for the people who are really like into this thing, and not the people who are like in the outer regions. They might become your customer, but they need the most convincing. And when you're building something new, you're really looking for the first people to buy or use your product or service, because it's hard enough to introduce something new, believe me. And yeah, so if you're going to do the interviews, you want to like zoom in a little bit. So maybe we can like make this a little bit more. Okay, so we want to design a solution for people who have been trying multiple times to lose weight but didn't succeed. Now you're like narrowing it down. It's easier to find people who fit this description. Actually, I think it's best if you can answer the who-where question. If you just have a target group, that's not enough. I think it's better if you can say who-where. That makes it easier for you to go out and actually find people to talk to. Believe me, it's pretty hard, like, to really find like the right people, and it takes a lot of time to do, I don't know, 20, 30 interviews if you're not very precise in where you can find people. If you're just going to roam the streets, then it's going to take you ages, and we don't want that. So maybe we can improve this one when design a solution for working people living in Amsterdam between 30 and 40 years old who have been trying multiple times to lose weight but didn't succeed. If you think that these are the people that are really in the center of this circle, then you should really go for them. So again, like, really, if you think that these are the people that are the ones that are gonna love your product or your solution, they're really like waiting, they're like begging you to make to build a solution for them, because these people really have a problem, they really want their problem fixed, then focus on these people and talk to them and ask them, okay, so tell me about it. Why? Keep asking them questions and keep finding out about why they're having this problem, how they're solving it, etc., etc. We'll get back to that later. And what you see a lot is that people actually don't find a problem, or they do find a problem, but the solutions are good enough. It depends on how you look at it. You could say, okay, then you have a problem. But actually, I think it's really good, because that means that you've saved yourself a lot of time going after a certain idea that is not worth, or a problem that's actually not worth solving. So this happens, that you invalidate something. That's okay. Maybe you can change the target group. Maybe you can change the problem. Maybe when talking to people, you found out there were other problems. But the thing what people say sometimes to me is like, okay, I can't talk to 17 million people, right? I'm like, man, in a day you can talk to a lot of people. I talked with a guy. They spent more than 100,000 euros on their startup, and they have like someone with big pockets. And I asked him, like, okay, so which problem are you solving for whom? And he said, I don't know. And I said, man, you have a problem. And but then, like, we were talking about Kastev, and then he said, like, think about the 17 million people. And I really, like, I get it, but there was like a lot of resistance with him, because I think he doesn't want to be wrong. Again, you can't be wrong, but so I think maybe he was afraid of this one, that when doing Kastev, he wouldn't find people who actually had the problem, and that the whole business would be invalidated. What I mean, in a way, is strange, because if that's the case, then they will be out of money in a couple of months, and he will have spent a lot of extra time working on something that is not worth fighting for. So, but I mean, yeah, this is, I think, the whole point of Kastev is that it can save you a lot of time, or it can tell you a lot about how to actually build a solution that's better than you probably had in mind. By the way, more on this in the second meetup. Okay, so who does interviews here? Can you tell me something? Who wants to tell something about, like, how does he prep for the interviews? Like, what is a good setup? Do you record something? Maybe. Do you have a mic?
I have a mic. So, who's first?
Really depends on the type of interview, I guess. If you have a generative session with a group of people. Do I need a mic?
Yeah, it's being recorded, so.
Oh, okay.
If you want.
Well, I said it really depends on the type of interview. If you have a generative session, you do it with a group of people. You try to ask open-ended questions, of course. Don't be suggestive.
Yeah, tell them. I know. Certain pitfalls, maybe that, things you did wrong in the beginning that, like, you don't do anymore.
For me,
Yeah.
still learning, I guess.
Everybody's always learning. Yeah.
Can't think of something right now.
Okay, maybe someone else thinks.
I think one of the most important things is to kind of like build rapport and, make your interviewee, comfortable enough to, actually spill their minds and not feel inhibited, either in a group or in a one-on-one session. So just, understanding a bit about the context and, task flow or whatever of the person you're interviewing,
Yeah.
Builds kind of like respect. Like, okay, this person just didn't end up, next to me and starts talking to me into the blue or out of the blue, but, he actually is interested in my problem, because usually when people have problems, they're actually motivated to talk about it.
Yeah, true. That's what you see a lot. That you go out with people and you're talking to other people about problems, and then I'm just like not supervising, just like observing how people do the interviews. And then what you see a lot, especially for like first timers, again, they're always very much focused on their solution somehow. I don't know. And then what happens a lot is that people are just like fishing for things that match their solution. And this is really something that is a pity, because they usually miss out on a lot of information that people are actually saying. And it's especially when people are very, like when they're like non-verbal cues, or like this, and they're getting emotional and things like that. That's really like when you want to like have your antenna out and just like focus really good on what people are saying, because these are probably the moments where people really are expressing their pains or their things that are important to them. And when someone's like, this is a big problem to me, that's not a problem. That's really not worth like fighting for. So maybe something else, things to watch out for.
I would say like this, but I'll wait for the mic. One of the things that I've found pretty difficult in interviews is that the thing you're describing, that they actually get mad, that's what you really want, because then you have found a real pain. But the pain is usually in something very concrete and very practical. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be really difficult to figure it out, because the conversation can be really general. If you only ask really broad questions because you don't want to steer them towards your solution, it can be really difficult to find that pain. So I was wondering whether you have a solution for that.
Yeah, it depends. Let me see. So for example, with a startup that I'm coaching at the moment for ING, their mission was really very much focused on, well, I cannot tell a lot about that, but okay, so their mission was focused on a very distinct process. Wow, that's vague. So, for example, with if you want to solve, for example, the tax problem, you could say we want to focus on the advice, but if you really have no idea, you could take it a lot broader, and you can say, okay, so we're going to focus on the whole, thing from A to Z, from like finding a bookkeeper or finding someone to help you with your taxes, from doing the actual taxes. Getting advice. You can do that for individuals, for for companies, or for ZZP'ers. How do you call it? Entrepreneurs, or you know what I mean. So I think if you're really, really broad, then it could be a problem, because it will probably take you a lot of time, like finding out, what you're actually looking for. So that's why I said, like, try to be as specific as possible, and don't be specific in a solution. It's okay to have like a solution in the back of your mind. That's okay. It's just like, don't go looking for proof that your solution is the best. That's like not the way to go. But you can have like a solution in the back of your mind. And so try to be as specific as possible about the problem. And if there really is a big problem, you will find it. Like within 5 or 10 interviews, you will find it for sure. If you have like approximately the good target group, and this sounds more difficult than it actually is, because like it's easier than you think to find a good target group with a problem. So, but maybe so in the setup, it's always good to have like 2 people.
Are there actually people here who are planning to do interviews at this very moment?
That's a good question. Are there? I would have suspected or expected more.
Are there
Yeah.
in this group people who are actually planning to do interviews to do customer?
Yeah, so the question is like, are there...
So we are already in the process of doing it.
You're already in the process. Who's planning on doing conversations in the next month? You are. And who has been doing conversations with customers already, or with people, sorry? Okay, so that's like half. Maybe this is something we can go on in the group discussion. Maybe like see what we can learn from each other. Because I think I think the purpose of the group discussion is that like I try to shut my mouth and like you do the talking. That would be awesome. So in the interview, I think it's best like, just to have two people. Sometimes, I mean, you can do it alone. Then people advise, like record it. I don't do it. I don't really believe in it because it takes you so much more time. But it is really, really hard to do an interview alone because like what you hear and what people say is very different usually from what they are actually saying. And I really like some time ago I had an interview with a company or with like two people from a company, and the interview it took like an hour, and it took me about 3 hours to really like dismantle the whole interview or the whole conversation. It was really hard, and with two people it's much easier because then you can just say, okay, so what did you hear and what did I hear, and you can just, so that works best, I think. When you start an interview, and this sounds so obvious, but I see this going wrong a lot of times, are you talking to the right target group? If your target group is people between 30 and 40 living in Amsterdam, or working people living in Amsterdam who want to lose weight but and haven't tried but didn't succeed in the past. If you are talking to people who are, for example, 20, then they fit the rest of the description. It's like it's messing with your data. And this one's not that big of a problem. But if someone would say, for example, I didn't really put any effort in fixing this problem, then that's not your target group at that moment. Really don't forget about it. And a lot of people, like, they discard this when they're doing the actual interviews because they're like, hooray, we have someone that like kind of fits the description, but it really messes with your data. And really like watch out for this, because this is like something that I didn't hear before. Like someone never told me this, but I see this going wrong a lot of times, like when people are doing customer development talks, so of interviews. So, well, let's see. Let's try some questions to see if you think, is it a good or a bad question? So, first, a little takeaway. But this is really true. It's hard to ask the right questions, and it's very easy to ask the wrong questions. And well, let's see how you're going to do. These slides come popping up. So compare these two questions. Like, how many times do you think you will go to the gym in the next 3 months? Still for the target group that we were just talking about, versus how many times did you go to the gym in the past 3 months? So this is like a very typical example of where things go horribly wrong when people have no experience with CusDev. They would think that this is a good question, I think. But think about it. Like, what will this question like teach you versus this question? This is about an intent, about an intention. How many times do you think you will? I don't know. As long as you don't have like a very strict routine, people will probably don't know. And they will probably actually like exaggerate this. They will probably say, they'll think like once, and they'll say like 5 times, because they don't want to look like, a lazy bastard. So versus how many times did you go to the gym in the past 3 months will tell you much more about their actual behavior. And that's really what customer development is about. It's really not about focusing on future behavior, planned behavior, or intentions or opinions or whatever. It's about things that people did in the past, because, as you will agree, past behavior is the best predictor for behavior in the future, and it's not what people say they're going to do. So, okay, so we're going to have a couple of questions. What do you think of this product? Is this okay? Hands up for this is a good question. No hands. Yeah. No, what do you think of this product? Yeah, your own product, your own solution.
Better than, do you like this product?
Yeah, that's true. But I thought that one would really be too obvious. Well, maybe it's in there. I don't know. So yeah, what do you think of this product? It's not okay. Because yeah, you're not looking for opinions. People will probably, if it's your product, people will probably be very nice and say like, yeah, no, I like this product. So beautiful, fluffy, and it's so cheap. And I would. Okay, so would you buy this product? Hands for this is a bad question. Hands for this is a bad question. Would you buy this product? Yeah, it's a bad question. Again, take this as an example. Say, okay, so I'm talking with you, I'm interviewing you, and I've just told you about this is like the way you shouldn't do the interviews, like just to be straight. I've just told you about this great solution, and I've just told you that I've spent, like for the past 6 months, I did nothing else but like work and build this product, and I'm so in love with my product, and I work so hard, Okay, would you buy it? But that's usually what happens, and it doesn't tell you anything. People will probably say yes. And then, are they going to buy your product? How many people are probably going to buy your product? I think much less than people who actually say that they would buy the product. So,
what would be the first question you would ask?
Well, still, people don't know, if people are really interested, like sell them the product. It's as easy as that. Don't ask like, would you buy the product? If people say yes, then why don't they buy the product? So, if you're really into tricking people, when you have a solution, you could do it. You could say like, would you buy this product? And when people would say yes, okay, so, well, that'll be 10 euros, please. Yeah. No, it's still, you're going for the actual commitment. As long as, again, if people say, you can like later in the process when you have a solution, you could try and let people like buy the product, even though you might not even have a product. That's what you see a lot online, where do you know the term MVP? Minimum viable product. It's where you build something, usually like a website, and you pretend that there is actually a service behind it, or that people can actually buy something, and when they try to buy it, then it says like, okay, oh sorry, we don't have it right now. Or sometimes they even let you like buy it and then say, okay, so sorry, we're out of stock, here's your money back, or you get some other notification. But like the whole question, like would you buy it, is not telling you anything. The only thing that's telling you something is when someone's actually like giving you currency, when someone's actually giving you money or giving another commitment. But just the question, would you buy it, is not giving you any good data. So, how much would you pay for this product? Good question or bad question? Hands for a good question. People are... Again, it's too hypothetical. People don't know. People will say like, oh, I might pay 5 euros. It can be okay if you want to have like, I don't know, just general. No, that's not even true. It's not giving you any data. How much would you pay? Again, try and sell the product for a certain amount of money and set different price intervals. So let's say you're going to sell something for like 5, 7.5, and 10 euros, and just like see how many people are actually buying it. The whole question, like how much would you pay for this, is not. Yeah. Now this is in more like later on in the process. So really at the beginning of the process, you're very much into the pains and needs, and like as you gradually learn more about people, you're gonna build a solution, and you're gonna validate that also. And it's at that moment that people would say like, yeah, how much would you pay for this product? Oh, sorry, yeah. Sometimes people do it, when they have an idea, like, oh, I have this great idea, how much would you pay for it? And that still is not telling you anything. So there's also a bad question. Good, bad data, responses. And this is also something that, good bad data. I would definitely buy that. Is that a good response? They're a little bit trick questions because it's bad data because again, it's not telling you anything. And actually, when someone tells you this, you're either at the end of the conversation and you already have like a solution, and you're like the conversation is over, and you actually explain to them, okay, so this is what we actually do. I would definitely buy that. Is just a way of saying, I'm a nice person and I don't want to hurt your feelings. Again, if someone is really interested in this, like just say, okay, you would definitely buy that. You can actually buy it. I might not be able to give you the product now, but you can actually buy it now for, let's say, 50% discount, and you get the product later. If someone is really like enthusiastic, and this is like, I would definitely buy that. This sounds like someone who is really, really into your product, right? If someone is really interested, why not buy it for like 50% of the price? So this is really just a way of saying, I'm a nice person. Wow, that's amazing. This is something a lot of entrepreneurs get wrong. They pitch their story to whoever wants to hear it, and then someone says, wow, that's amazing. For a lot of people, that sounds like you're doing a good job. You're actually building something worthwhile. You're building something that's gonna rock so hard that everybody's gonna buy it. But this is no data whatsoever. It's just like saying, I don't want to hurt your feelings, and you know, maybe someone likes what you're doing, and like the whole concept of what you're doing might like appeal to someone, but it's not good data. You cannot do anything with this information. That's what a lot of people think. And this is also something. When you're in the when you're in the later stage, you're validating a solution. Let me know when you're ready. Is this a good or a bad answer? So this could happen when you're validating a solution and you're at the end of the conversation, and someone says, yeah, let me know when you're ready. Good or bad? Hands for good? Why?
I reckon
Mm.
it's someone's bringing, making an offer to you. There's a form of commitment, and he wants to know his interest.
But only if they leave you with a currency or an email address or something.
Yeah.
They just go, you know, you're ready to walk away. But if it's like, here's
Yeah.
my email address, here's my phone number, if you
That's-
call, it's better than nothing. It's not a purchase, it's something.
Yeah, and still like it's still bad. Like when you're really talking about data, like something that you can like plan your future on, it's bad data. Because as long as you don't have indeed the currency, it's someone like everybody can say, let me know when you're ready. You know, when someone is again like really, really enthusiastic, you'll say like, okay, I want to use this now. You know, like what can I do? You're talking to your early ventures, right? Your early adopters. And when someone's like, yeah, you know, let me know when you're ready, that person is apparently not really. And okay, true. When someone's like on the chair, and okay. When someone's like bouncing on the chair, okay. I think we're going to speed up a little bit. Yeah, so I wanted to like prove my point with this question. Like, are you interested in a workshop about custom dev? More people would probably raise their hands than people who would actually attend a custom dev workshop. So, like the kind of questions you ask are really, really, really important, and the data you get, or the amount of data you really interpret as being valuable is really important. So you want to focus on pains, questions about like, you know, what is the pain, how do people solve it now, why, how much money do they spend right now, why do they spend money on that now, do they like the solution, like what kind of solutions do they don't like. You know, you really want to learn as much about the people, and we're talking about the beginning again, like of the process. You really just want to know a lot about the person. You don't want to, again, tell your solution or something like that. You're just talking about their world, and it's not about you. So yeah, more about this in session number 3, how to validate problems. So the pitfalls, yeah, focus on people's pains, not your solution. I'm just like saying this over and over again because it's like it goes wrong so many times. So it's really like something I will keep repeating. Sorry about that. Focus on past behavior. Don't focus on planned or future behavior. People don't know when they're going to the gym. People do know when they went to the gym. So that's like a much better predictor than what they say they're going to do. Focus on facts, not opinions. Yeah, if you ask me about McDonald's, I will say it's like the wickedest place on earth. It's like everything that's bad in the world, like McDonald's stands for it. And you may think that I would never go to McDonald's, but probably I've been there last year 4 or 5 times, I don't know. So you sometimes, you know, you end up there. It just happens, you know. So, so focus on facts and not on opinions. A lot of people forget or they don't signal the strong emotions. I see that really a lot. Again, when people are like moving their hands and things like that, you know, that's something where you want to dig deeper. But it happens that this might not be part of like the thing you're looking for, the problem. Still, man, there's CosDev gold right under your nose. So, yeah, don't miss it. And again, like watch out for people being nice. When people are being nice to you, you're probably asking the wrong questions. Because you're really just like looking for data and not for schouderklopjes, how do you call it? For reaffirmance that you're actually doing a good job. So, and again, if possible, ask for commitment, because that's the only way of really knowing that you're actually like doing something worthwhile. So this is not in the beginning, but later on. Analyzing the data, really in like 10 to 30 conversations, you can get a lot of information. CosDev is not about n is 1,000, you know, CosDev is about like n is 10 to 30. Within 10 to 30 conversations, you really can get a lot of information about your customers. So we'll get back on this in the 5th session, I think, or the 6th maybe, how to analyze the data. So this is really just at the end of the year. Yeah, I cannot go into detail because this is really something, yeah, you can spend literally a whole session on it. So 10 to 30 sessions is enough to get a lot of data. And yeah, if you have questions about that, just ask me. But there's a very good book, I will put it, or it's in the presentation, Value Proposition Design. There are not so many tools on how to really get all the data and really go through it, but in the book they have a really good way of doing that. So, Value Proposition Design, yeah, that's okay. Buy it, it's really good. So the basic do's and don'ts, starting with a solution in mind. Again, don't do it. Starting with the target group pain in mind. Yeah, do that. That's good. Pitching. Pitching is selling. We don't sell. We're doing CosDev. So pitching is really not what you're doing. Asking for opinions. Not so good. Use personas. Tricky. I think it depends. Like when you're really starting, when you're really starting, you want to form like this very specific target group, but you don't know. You know, go out, do like 5 or 10 conversations, and then you'll probably have a much better idea of like who you're talking to, like who is the one that's having the problem. And then I think it's good to form, to make personas. But I think it just saves you some time if you don't do it directly. So that's why it's like, yeah. Preparing max 3 questions. Some would disagree, I guess, with me, but I think like this is good enough. Like preparing max 3 questions. Know the subject, know who you're talking to, know what's like going on in their world as best as you can before doing the actual interviews, and just like have 3 questions ready. Know what you're looking for, which problem you're looking for, and just like go out and talk to people, and go off script. Don't prepare like 15 questions, because then you'll probably be like, did you know this is then you're just like tapping boxes, and that's not how you want to do these kind of interviews. You really just want to go like all over the place, and then like later at the drawing board, get all this information, try and see if you can get patterns. Sorry, I forgot about that. About the analyzing of the data. When you have done like 10 to 30 conversations, you get back to the drawing board, you will probably find patterns. They will emerge out of themselves. Sounds a little bit vague, but it actually happens. You will know it when you do it. I don't know if people agree on this. It sounds very vague if you haven't done it, probably, but I see some heads nodding. Okay, keep asking why, of course, like always the why. You're not talking. The other person is talking. You want to know a lot of things. Tools, like I said, there are not so many. Value proposition design is really good, I think. They have the value proposition canvas. It might not be for every job or every person, but I think that's like one of the best tools around to get good information of people. Maybe someone here who has a tool to offer.
Maybe Floris, what would be the perfect question to start a break? Are you thirsty or do you want a beer?
I'm almost done. We can do a break now.
Okay.
Just like, it's okay with me. I don't care. Like we can do a short break now.
Well, there's this book on Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Yeah.
And it's it has a section.
Yeah. Yeah, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a very good book. I also put it in the list of books to read, because like the whole, again, it's a mindset, not a discipline. And there's a lot like if you get the lean mindset, COSDEV is a very big part of the lean methodology. So just a quick, you want to do like get a drink, move your feet a little bit, or just finish the presentation? We're about halfway, I think. No, just I think a couple of minutes. Shall I wrap it up? Yes, okay? Okay, no. Okay, well actually... Damn you, Stephen. Damn you. So, okay, let's do a very, very, very quick recap, because you probably, like, the slides will be available, of course, and actually, like, we're having this big camera here recording everything. So if you really, really, really want to look it back later, it's possible. So, okay, why we need COSDEV? World is changing. I think everybody agrees on that. Because the world is changing, we have these many new opportunities to build and create new stuff. The only question is like, how do we do it? What is COSDEV? In my opinion, it's the art of like really understanding people's pains, needs, problems, and acting based on these insights. So how do you do it? The prep. 2 people. That's best, I think. We had all the pitfalls. It's in the presentation, so if you're really curious, you can look it back. Analyze the data. I'm not saying you should be a snail, but I mean, like, your antenna you should be very sensitive when doing sensitive as a snail. No, you should be very sensitive when doing the interviews. Really, I'm serious. Really, doing these interviews is really, really, really hard. And Like sometimes when I join people who haven't really done it, for example, for the ING startups, it's you see the things like the mistakes they make are very natural. Everybody makes these, and because it is so hard to do a good interview, and especially to listen very carefully about what people are saying. So just like be aware, and you might even want to record like the first couple of conversations you do, and like listen later to see what people actually said, because it's really tough. So I had an example about a local and a global. Never mind. It's I think it's time. Yeah. Oh wow. That's like. Yeah, I'll tell it at the drinks if you really want to know. It's a good story. Like Steven said, we think education is key. We hope you're gonna come back for the other sessions, where other people will have probably a shorter talk. Sorry about that. I get carried away sometimes. So some reading material, it's all there. Just you can find it. It's in the slides. Drinks and good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, guys, let's have some drinks.
Research and what you call cost dev is quite intensive, but costs quite a lot of time. And often we see that customers already started with their product, or what you say, have a solution or an idea already in mind, and don't have the budget to do this kind of extensive research. So it's very hard for us to convince them that it's worth not starting before you know what you're actually going to do.
Can you state just shortly what you do, like what kind of work you do?
I do user and usability research.
And what kind of work do you do for clients? What is the work you produce?
So we interview clients to either check something that is already built to see how we can further improve it, or more at the start of the process before something is built.
Okay, so and I'm not sure if I 100% correctly understand the because so.
May I help? Because I had a feeling like the whole presentation like that. I heard about this. What do you think about user experience?
That's usually I think with that's usually with an existing product, right?
No.
Or you mean the so explain user.
Basically, like user experience design research or something. So this is a field that practice a discipline which works with like users or customers, and we do everything starting from like when you have an idea or we need to research for a user need and find that pain and needs. And we also help clients or products to optimize, to make them better. So this is like discipline that covers both, and what you call customer development validation, and also what you call growth hacking. Am I correct?
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
So well, what you're saying is we're in different parts of the process. You're in it at the end.
Well, it's on different stages of the product life cycle, but it's one discipline. And what I heard you today, you're talking about, it's a lot from that discipline.
That's also what I said. I don't think it's like a distinct discipline, customer. I think it's really like something that is going to be part of a lot of different jobs. And I actually also didn't say it's like totally new, I think, but still I'm trying to get the question. Maybe someone can help me. So you're actually doing user research, and the extra time would be in...
So what I'm saying, the research when something is already built is quite quick and easy, but it's, in my opinion, it's too late if you do the research at that stage, but you should do it at the start, which takes more time, but it's hard for us to convince our clients that they should invest that time before they get started.
Yeah. I was thinking of a very different subject. Okay, I'll get back to that after the.
So I think the point you're making here is that, you know, customers, basically your customers coming to you for answers, right, on this, and they already have like a solution in mind, right? Or what's the starting point? Is it a concept they have and they want to have it validated, or do they already have like a solution which they want to build, or they just say, hey, I have this, and I want you to make the most user-friendly solution for me?
Even they have a concept or a live product, but I think they should come before they have something.
Yeah. Well, I can talk from my own experience. We have the same issue, basically. Although we're not a UX design company per se, we do have that experience, but we're not really focused on that. We do have, for instance, people that come in, you know, like founders who have an idea. And the problem you get a little bit there is that the most easy route is to say, hey, yeah, of course we can build it and we just start and then we'll figure it out how it's going to work. And you know, that's when, of course, also the money kicks in on our side. And although that's sometimes painfully, because you need to tell the customer, hey, did you really think about this? Did you validate the idea enough and the problem on the customer side? I think it's the best way to go. It's worth the effort. And why? Because I've also seen here and on other parties that you know, the most painful thing is that a customer builds something for and uses your experience, and then it doesn't work. In the end, for yourself, it's also a problem because you're getting a very bad portfolio. You know, if all startups die who do business with you, that's not a nice thing. So yeah, I think that's the starting point, and also for yourself to really give good advice and to really be, you know, somebody who's thriving to the solution. I think that's the most important part. So that's how how I do it. So
we don't work with dying startups. We work with Ahold and other large companies. But I agree. Maybe you should say like, well, this is not what you need. You need something else. But what we get back often is, well, our budgets don't allow this.
How long is a normal cycle of when you help people? Like if you're working for Ahold, for example, how long is the cycle for one project?
So
approximately.
Often we do multiple shorter projects. So if we do usability research, it's very short. We do that within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But if you do user research, which we also do, but not as much as we would like to, so user research at the start of a project that would take, I don't know, a month, 2 months.
Because that's like what I sometimes build like platforms, like complex websites for clients, and they also come to me like with a certain idea or a certain solution, and then I just say, okay, so you have this idea, let's talk about that, but maybe we should validate a couple of assumptions first, like on which you have based your idea about what we should build. You know, in this case, you're usually talking about features. And I'm just like starting a whole different process of talking to their current customers. And so I don't think you can, I don't think it's just about like certain arguments, but I think it's especially about like changing the whole process maybe. And again, like the thing I said in the presentation, you know, ask the question like, what if we're wrong? You know, that's different from like, what if you would spend some more money? What if we're wrong? You know, what if we're gonna, you know, do some research after like something that is actually very irrelevant? You know, you're throwing away your money. So I don't know, but yeah.
But it's also, I think it's really difficult to do this when you are already, we are already in the marketplace. So when people come to us and they already know us, doing good customer development with them is really difficult because they're biased. I mean, they've seen our solution.
Yeah.
And we'll try to steer the conversation one way,
about the company I work for, and then just say, we're hired by a company, we will tell you at the end of the interview.
So we have two different processes. We have one for complete exploration, where we don't tell about our solution, where we don't actually tell about our solution and don't tell about our product. And then there's the other process on existing customers where they already know what we do, and we can discuss that. But I think if for you, it really depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to figure out whether you should be offering different services or different products, then you should probably not use people who come to you for the services they know you for. But if you want to iterate on your existing stuff, then it's not really a problem. And regarding the time consumption thing, if you are someone they like to spend time with because you have expertise, usually we find that it's not really an issue.
I think there's another question that I received that is a little bit connected to this. Like, how do you find out what your new, what was it again? How do you discover your clients of the future? Ooh. I think it has a little bit to do with this, because like with current customers, they are used to a certain product. So incremental improvements will be okay, but if you're going to change things radically, I think especially like the bigger your solution or the bigger the service you provide, I think especially for companies like Ahold, like they don't really like the change, I guess, unless it's like things are going to cost them less or going to give them much more. But if it's going to cost more and they don't really see the benefit and it's pretty new to them, then it's probably pretty hard to do it. So I really think like in these cases you're really looking for new clients and trying out like different approaches, I guess, with them. I guess it depends on the sector. But for instance, like I have one client where we have this platform and she has a certain set of customers. And they are more like the traditional, big companies like Transavia, KLM, the government, and they use her service. And yeah, you actually know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, because he's like in the lab, because he's a lab rat. I want to say lab rat, but I can't. So we actually think that. So right now we made like a lab where Sjoerd and his colleagues are in the lab, and we think they represent the customer of the future, and they actually don't pay the full price, and in return for some feedback they can actually use the service. And with them, like we can like try and see like how they like what are they missing with the product, and they are probably the ones that can tell us a lot about where we should move with the product and what kind of things they expect from this product in the future, because like the current clients will probably not be able to tell you this, because they're the laggards, they're the ones like following all the others. And yeah, I think especially if you're working for corporates, that's a big challenge.
So you're saying that in your current customer base you will not find the customer of the future?
Well,
if your customers are corporates, I think he's saying that you basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course it depends. If your target group is like really like the early evangelists, if they're like a certain type of person or a group of people that are really like the first with everything. But I think especially like the bigger the client, the more they're going to be like in the end of the spectrum. They're going to be the latest who are going to change. And I think this is a big threat, I think, for companies servicing like big corporations. Yeah.
It's not always the case though, because we work mostly for corporates and some have huge R&D budgets and actually test out a whole lot of new technologies. So it's not always the case, but it can definitely be the case. And I think you just need to check across your customer base yourself, like who is in the lead and who is a laggard.
Yeah.
I think like I work for like a corporate So we work for the biggest companies, and now
Yeah.
we're moving down. Actually, we're getting smaller and smaller merchants as clients.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I believe that it's always possible to find your clients somewhere close to what that target audience that you have already, but just growing, like you start from minimum position,
Mm-hmm.
then you get more and more features, and you will get more and more different groups, different target audiences. It's possible.
Yeah.
Just don't go like that circles that you have. You cannot start from the middle of the circle and get right away the last circle.
No, true.
So you're just moving.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like and that's one of the biggest challenges for companies now is to also keep evolving themselves, and that's a real challenge. I cannot give like a distinct answer on that, but I think you should keep on like testing with users. For example, if you make software, Stephen, now I really don't understand why not every like big service provider, big SaaS platform has like an average of like 10% of the people in like their next, big, how do you call it, big update. Of course, they A/B test the shit out of you, but I still think we could do so much more testing and learning about the people that actually visit your platform or are your customers. But
can I ask you a question? I didn't say anything.
you're not? Are you on the list? No. Yeah, sure.
One thing that I noticed is that in your presentation you really focus on a business to consumer sort of setting. While now actually where we have a lot of people who use this in the field, we really quickly get to business to business. I would say that structure.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that actually the basics of customer development would be the same when you would do business to consumer as business to business, or what would change?
I think so the question is like, is business to business approximately the same as for business to consumers in the process? And I think it's like the basics are the same, but I think with B2B you have many more stakeholders. For example, you have many more people who can like sabotage the process. You have much more to do with politics and things like that. And I think that's people who are working in B2B, they say, I would love to do B2C because that's much easier. And people in doing B2C say the same about B2B. And I don't know, I think you have different challenges. Sometimes it feels as if it's easier to sell to B2C because it's easier to surface the problems and then they just have to get their wallet out. On the other hand, with B2C you might need to sell, I don't know, let's say 10,000 versions of your product or service or whatever to stay afloat. And with B2B it might be just 2 or 3. So right now I'm doing CusDev on a certain proposition or a certain problem, and I'm really also validating this actually to see if it's possible to really surface a big problem and be able to get commitment very early on, because it's such a big problem for them. And I mean, that's, I think, the good thing about B2B is that like if there's really a problem, then there's always a budget. So when it comes to a budget, I think it's easier for the B2B. So I think it's, the basics are the same, but you have different challenges like different stakeholders and things like that. Maybe someone wants to...
Yeah, I have a question or a remark on that. I'm very new to all of this, but I'm not new to B2B. I think in B2B there's a process, right? You have to work with your coworkers to get something done. So I think, or I suspect, CusDev would be different in a B2B environment because it's not only your problem, it's a problem you have to tackle with a bunch of other people. Is that a correct assumption, or is that rubbish, what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, true.
So don't you think the process of CusDev would be different? I mean, if you interview just one person with a company, right? You get his perspective or her perspective on a certain problem, but in fact, it's the problem of not that one person, but the problem of a group of people. Yeah, or sometimes in different departments, or I mean, there's a process there. If you're say I'm a consumer, right? So if you solve my problem is solved. Period. If I'm in the business, it's not only my problem; it's the problem of my coworkers as well. So I figure the process of CusDev would be different in the B2B setting.
That's actually why I asked the question, because from a practical point of view, if you want to validate a product in a B2B setting, you usually can't talk to the whole group of people that are maybe going to use that product. You usually maybe get a talk with a manager. And so how would you target for example, so now in your example you said like between 30 and 40, living in Amsterdam, but when you have to target like the right person in the company, it's a really different story, I think. You have to know if someone is open for innovation, for example, or someone has a specific taste for a certain kind of tools, for example. I mean, there are so many things you have to account for. Like, how would you target the right person in a company?
Well, of course, you don't really know like the person before you talk to him or her. But still, I think like when you have a certain responsibility. So, for example, I'm validating a proposition around phishing mails. And I spoke to a big national bank, and I looked up like the people who were working on internal security, and I figured that they would have a problem with phishing. That phishing was like a problem for the bank, and it was quite easy to get a conversation with them and to talk with them about this problem. And so, still, of course, like it depends if people have like are more like prone to this approach or are more open to this approach or about talking about this problem. But still, I think like if you, and that's an assumption of mine, I've never worked full-time for a company whatsoever. So I mean, I'm lacking a lot of knowledge there. But my assumption is that if you have a big problem and the problem is not being solved, then when someone knocks on your door and asks you about the problem, then you're at least willing to talk with this or that person. If that person can actually solve your problem, then I think that's always interesting. So as long as the problem is big enough, I think people are always interested in a solution.
But the problem owner doesn't always have the resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True.
Authority to...
Yeah, but I mean that's the same for B2C, right? I mean, if your problem is I think it's the same for B2C. You might have a big problem, but you might not have a budget. So that's the same irrespective of B2C. And I think, like for example, if you're selling to kids, for example, but you need a parent's consent, for example, for games or in the App Store or whatsoever, then you also have this constraint of like another person in the process, another stakeholder who is actually like blocking or might block your path or so I think it's actually it's more alike than you would actually think, but sure, it's not the same. And again, I think it really depends on the size of the company and the problem you're solving.
Okay, let's do one last question and then wrap up. And more questions during the beers, I would say so. So, yeah, okay.
Thank you. So during the presentation, you mentioned that it was important to really narrow down on a specific target group for to have it more homogeneous and to have good data. But then at face value, what you presented looked a bit artificial to me. So I'd like to understand how did you come up to that particular target group? What was the process? Can you elaborate on how you ended up on that target group? Because maybe it could be like 25, 35, maybe it could be like in Utrecht or in Western cities,
True. I think the starting point is always an educated guess. That's like the tricky thing. So you're having so you have the assumption that when you want to build a solution for people that are overweight, that the people who are actually like really dying for a solution are between 30 and 40, etc., etc. And I really think that this educated guess starts with a gut feeling, and your gut feeling is usually or might not be right, but they're, you know, where, how do you call it? I don't know, where smoke is fire. How would you yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, again, you don't need to do 30 conversations to really find out that the target group is probably more between 20 and 30 and living not in the city, but like more in the rural
Yeah, but
area.
if you apply the rules, like you would discard the people that are below 30, for example, and assuming that the reality would show that people between 20 and 30 are actually have this pain more than the other ones, you would not find out because initially it was too narrow, so you would just disregard, you know, like this other data. That's why I understand it's important to have it narrow, to have it homogeneous, and also to not spend too much resources, because the wider, the bigger effort. But at the same time, you overlook a lot of data that would have been useful maybe to channel you to the right target group.
True.
Because I initially really agree with you, but when you make the comparison with, for example, growth hacking you just discussed, so a really basic example, you're going to do A/B testing, and you're going to actually divide between a purple button and a green button. You're discarding all the other colors during the A/B testing process. So you have to make a choice somewhere to start somewhere. So I do agree with you, like why do you pick it, but you have to sort of do your really basic research, I think, in general. Just, okay, we have an assumption for this color, we have an assumption for this color, with that color group, okay, go. I mean, and with the outcome, you can actually go on. So say, if you would invalidate your target group of 30 or 40, you have to start over, I think, and then
Start again at 30.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Like when I started like learning about the whole lean methodology, I was, you know, like, how can you have all these assumptions? Because like, what if you're wrong? And I think that's really the thing here, that you never know you're right. And I really do believe that, you know, if you have identified a problem, so you say, a lot of people are overweight. You know, you can find a lot of art. That's a fact. You know, I think you can probably find numbers on that. So you can find the quantitative data on that, and find, you know, where the group is probably with the biggest problem. You might go to fitness centers or things like that, and, you know, ask like, okay, so how old are the people who go here, and or what are the people that usually quit within 6 months? You know, people of 20 might not quit so fast, but they might say, okay, oh, people between 30 and 40, yeah, you know, they try a lot, but they never stay longer than 3 months. So you always have these basic assumptions when you start, and I think when you really believe that there is a problem, and you have some proof that there is a problem, and you cannot find proof for that this problem is like really big in this subset of people, then, you know, try a different subset of people, and, you know, just don't throw everything out of the window, and just try it again. And if you're really uncertain about it, you can, of course, widen your target group and say, okay, you know, we're not just going to focus on people of 30 and 40, but of 20 to 60 to start, and then, you know, narrow it down. It just really depends on how much time you have. And
I think the conclusion is validating your assumptions. But let's go over that during a beer. Thanks, guys, for all being here. Of course, you're free to stay for a while to enjoy some more beer and some cold pizza. I think we've had a wonderful night. So I want to thank you, Floris, and also the guys who.
Thanks for being here.
And I think also some guys who are on the background, Tessa, Wies, Marleen. Yeah, they're still there, so. So yeah, I think I had some fun, so let's enjoy the beer. Yeah, oh yeah, and next week, by the way, I'm also, good that you mentioned it, I'm also co-organizer of Product Tank, which will be held next week at this place again, but I think then upstairs, because we have some bigger groups. So yeah, look it up on Meetup. Unfortunately, we are fully booked, but yeah, that's how it goes when you're organizing these wonderful events. So, but put yourself on the waiting list, and there's more to come. So yeah. Product Tank is another good question. Product Tank is a meetup for product managers. So basically, it's pretty broad meetup, I would say so. So this is pretty more specialized on customer validation. It goes from the place of a product owning organization to these kind of topics and how to work with an external supplier of your technical things, software, etc. So, and this one, which is coming up, is about innovation within companies. Yeah, please have a look at Meetup and yeah, Product Tank. So
I think
next Tuesday.
And the last thing, tomorrow we're gonna post the. We're going to open for the next event, so just so you know, if you liked it, you can already say, yeah, I'm going to be there, and reserve your spot. So it's going to be probably your 23rd of February, but we're not 100% sure yet, because we're trying to get a speaker from abroad, so that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
And last but not least, the slides will be shared, right? So, yeah, keep an eye on that. Yeah? Okay, thanks guys.